Have you met someone that can calculate numbers really quickly without using a calculator? These people are using strong mental math strategies. They've worked out multiple ways to calculate numbers really quickly and accurately. And an important foundation to mental math strategies is subitization. And this is a key strategy that young children can develop from a young age, even before they've started school. In this video, I'll explain what subitization is, and I'll give you 3 practical tips on how you can develop this skill in young children even before they start school. Hi, I'm Joni Flowers, and I help parents and educators with practical tips to support their young children on their learning journey. Okay, so let's get started. I'm going to show you some dots on a whiteboard. How many dots did you see? And how about on this one? Did you need to count each dot to work out how many were on there? Probably not, and that's because you can subitize. Subitization is the act of instantly recognizing small quantities of items. The word, which was only introduced last century, comes from a Latin word meaning suddenly. When we can subitize, we can instantly recognize a small number of items without needing to count them individually. Researchers say we can subitize up to 4 items, and this is called perceptual subitizing. And then when there are more than 4 items in a group, we subconsciously group them into smaller groups of 1, 2, 3, or 4 items, and this is called conceptual subitizing. For example, how fast can you work out how many dots are on the board now? Okay, so there are 7, and how did you do it? Did you subconsciously calculate a big group of 6, you recognized that, and then you added 1 more? Or perhaps you saw, oh, I know there's a group of 3 and a group of 4. What were you doing mentally to work out that this was a 7 without actually tapping out each of those dots? This is called conceptual subitizing. The interesting thing is that with numbers 5 and 6, we see those so often in a familiar pattern on dice or dominoes or even cards that we can subitize those numbers if they are shown in that familiar pattern. Okay, so let's try this out. I'm going to show you the whiteboard, have a look, and tell me how many dots are on there. Okay, were you able to work out how many dots are shown without actually counting them individually? If you could do that, then that's subitizing. And now how did you do it? Were you instantly being able to see that that's 5, or subconsciously, were you actually grouping these 5 dots into smaller groups? Perhaps you did a group of 3. So you might have seen this group of 3 and then a group of 2, or maybe you could see there's a group of 4 here and 1 at the top, and that's called conceptual subitizing. So subitizing leads to those skills that we need to calculate addition and subtraction in our heads, and it's also foundational for multiplication and division. And it is easy to help young children develop their subitizing skills. So let's look at 3 practical tips for developing subitizing. And these fun activities are used often in early years classrooms and so easy to implement at home. Okay, now for our first tip, it's called cover, see, cover. And this is something fun that you can find around the house. So you need 4 items, up to 4 items, because we want to start with perceptual subitizing. So I've got my 4 mandarins here, and you also need a bowl or a saucepan. So initially, if your child is beginning to work out these concepts, you can easily just go through and count those items, 1, 2, 3, 4, and just show them 1, 2, and 3. Show them the smaller group 1, 2, and what 1 is, making sure they understand that concept first. Then you would simply ask your child to look away, and you pop down your items, cover them up, get them to turn around, and you say, okay, you ready? I'm just gonna lift up this bowl. Tell me as fast as you can how many have I got in here, and here you go. And then you hide it, and this helps them practice that instant recognition, which is what we want for subitizing. And then when your child gets really adept at doing that, you can extend it and you can use more than 4 in there. So you can move up to 5 and 6 and see how they go at doing the next stage of subitizing, which is that conceptual subitizing. They're starting to group their items, put them into smaller groups. So have fun with that one. So now for tip number 2, play games. Play games that use dice or dominoes or even cards, because these games actually motivate children to be able to subitize as quickly as they can, because often it depends on how quickly they can recognize those numbers, especially cards. With playing cards, what you could do is buy an extra set of playing cards. They're not terribly expensive. And you just trim down the sides of the cards to eliminate the number there and that symbol for the suit, because that can get a little confusing for children. And then children will simply see that regular pattern and be able to practice their subitizing with the regular pattern on the cards. What you'll end up with is a suit that's much slimmer and trimmer like these. I have only done the cards up to number 6, but you could do higher cards as well. Then you've got your pack of cards. You can play Go Fish or you could play Snap. And of course, dominoes is just perfect for developing subitizing skills, because we need to be looking carefully to make sure that we've got the right number of dots, or in this case, Mickey Mouse faces there to play the game. And because we know dominoes and dice and playing cards, they have a regular pattern there for subitizing, it's also important for children to practice developing subitizing skills when the patterns are irregular. And that leads me to my final tip. And just before we get to tip number 3, our final tip, please remember to like this video and leave any of your questions about teaching young children in the comments box below. In fact, a good friend of mine who has a 5-year-old asked me about subitization recently, which motivated me to make this video. So now for tip number 3, provide opportunities for children to subitize small amounts that are not laid out in a regular pattern like they would be on a dice. Show your child that quantities of dots can also be shown in irregular ways. A fun way to do this is with 4 magnets. Start off by clarifying, yes, we've got 4 magnets there, and then perhaps move them around a little bit and just show your child, yes, it's still 4 that we've got there. So now they're starting to see that 4, it can be also shown this way in an irregular way. This is also part of another skill called conservation. Then you can create your own subitizing cards to show your child irregular patterns. All you'll need are some pieces of paper and a pen. Then you can use those cards that you've created to make up a game of Go Fish or maybe Snap. Or you could download this resource which I've created on Teacher Paid Teachers. It's a game of Snap as well, and it's just got different ways that these numbers can be represented. It also has digits in there as well, so that helps children make that connection to the numeral formation and the quantity. So if you are interested in that, the link will be in the description box below. So that's it for today. Happy subitizing. And if you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up and leave any questions you have about teaching young children in the comments below. I'll see you next time.